Welcome back to the diner for this edition of Burgers and Fries. And is it me, or are we having another female-led superhero movie just fail spectacularly at the box office? What the hell is going on, Pat?
Yeah, I know. I'm sensing a real pattern. And oddly enough, this ain't even an MCU movie this time around. It's Sony. And they don't exactly have the best track record when it comes to these solo films. With maybe an exception like the animated Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Tom Hardy's Venom. And to some extent, Venom Let There Be Carnage. But other than that, movies like Morbius and this movie in particular, Madam Web, yeah, I just think Sony really needs to just give up the rights to the Spider-Man catalog and give it back to Marvel Studios. Let them handle it.
Absolutely. Now, as you're pointing out, that it is a Sony release. It's not a Marvel release. It's not MCU. But do you think that's going to stop people from associating this with the MCU?
Probably not. I mean, some will argue that it is part of the Marvel timeline, but people like me, I just don't think it is. I mean, it's certainly not part of Tobey's timeline, and I don't know if it's part of the Tom Holland's timeline, which would be the MCU timeline, or if it's Andrew Garfield's timeline. We don't know. They never tell us.
Who really knows? But now let's talk about Madam Web for a second, okay? The score on IMDb is currently at 3.8. That's terrible for something that just came out. Normally when things come out, the scores are really high and then they go down. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's a 13% critical score.
That's about as bad as the Emoji Movie.
55% audience score, but again, 13% critical score. Now that's 2 points away from reaching Batman and Robin levels of score.
I didn't even see Batman and Robin.
It's okay. You're the only people on the planet that like that movie are people that are not part of this podcast right now. So,
but I am considering watching it.
It's worth watching just for the laughs. And again, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I could see him as Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, you got Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, and they're arguably the best parts of that movie. But anyway, according to The Hollywood Reporter, on opening night, you could watch advanced sales in real time declining due to buyers demanding refunds. So people who had thought of seeing it or might have bought advanced tickets must have heard how bad it was and then demanded refunds before they even went and saw it.
I probably could have tried to get my refund, but knowing this movie theater, they won't give me a refund. But they have probably given me like a free movie ticket or something, so that's better than nothing.
Yeah, but that's not saying much. So, Greg, did you happen to see Madam Web?
No way.
No way. Well, Pat here did see Madam Web. He's taken one for the team. Pat, how bad was this movie?
It was absolute dumpster fire. The only good thing about it is, if you look on the message board, is the pretty ladies in it.
Oh, God. Every time I saw that initial promotional thing where it was the three ladies in the spider suits, I thought it was a joke at first. I had no idea that this movie was coming out.
Yeah, but, it's funny, they show them in the movie, but they're only, visions towards the future. They're not even, throughout the whole movie itself. And that's just a major letdown. That would be like if they had a Spider-Man movie without Spider-Man. That's a crime.
Pretty much.
I don't know who did that, but that was pretty good.
Oh, I can do that too now, my friend.
Oh, good.
Oh, good God. I mean, you had a budget of $81 million, and they've decided when they release it on Valentine's Day that, we're going to call it a Valentine's Day weekend. No, it's a fucking week. Like Wednesday through President's Day, that's a week.
Yeah. Nothing like celebrating President's Day than watching a horrible movie like Madam Web, am I right?
No, nothing like taking your date on Valentine's Day and celebrating Valentine's
Oh,
Day
God.
to Madam Web.
I would
'Cause
feel
that's-
sorry for the ladies watching it.
That's when the movie was released, was fucking Valentine's Day.
And I actually did talk to one of the ladies as we were leaving the theater about how we felt about Madam Web, and she felt the same way as me.
For it being terrible.
Yeah. And this movie doesn't even have a Spider-Man. However, it has a man dressed like Spider-Man. And it's the main villain, Ezekiel Sims, who, by the way, is just completely forgettable.
Sounds like most of the villains in many recent movies. Oh, who's the villain? Oh, just some asshole.
I didn't even care what happens to some of these characters.
It doesn't even sound like anybody would have cared. And again, as you're pointing... Go ahead.
This is a major complaint I have. Like, how the hell does Madam Web go blind? They don't even explain that.
Wait
Whatever.
a minute. Isn't that one of her, like, key traits, Madam Web, in the comics?
Yeah.
Yes. And I didn't even watch the original cartoon, but I know as a fact that she's blind for some reason.
So one of the big defining traits that a lot of people, comic fans, know about her, they don't even explain how she gets that trait. There's not even an origin story about getting that trait.
Yeah, and here's another one. Here's another kicker. She apparently is now crippled. Professor X called. He wants his wheelchair back.
Probably from her experiences in 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one. Yeah, like, I swear to God, that wheelchair she was in is like the same wheelchair that Professor Charles Xavier used in X-Men.
Well, did they run out of money? Because their budget was $81 million, so they couldn't afford another wheelchair?
I guess not. They just recycle props from another movie.
Oh, Marvel, Sony, it's the same thing.
Yeah, bullshit.
And I was gonna mention this. From what I recall in the movie, well, even though I never seen it, but for what people pointed out, the way she got blind was something just blew up in her face and all that.
Oh, yeah, sure. That's a good reason.
So, look, that opening weekend, and I say weekend in quotation marks because of that whole period between Valentine's Day and President's Day, it got $25 million domestically. Nobody is showing up to see it with the exception of people like Pat. You don't have very many people like Pat left in the world that want to go see these movies.
Yeah, and yet, despite that, I hated this movie so much. But
So much.
I got one final complaint before I let you guys go on. They don't even use Spider-Man in this. They can't even say the baby's name that May and Uncle Ben or Ben Parker have. I don't know if this is because they're not allowed to use they don't have the rights to use Peter Parker's Spider-Man in this movie. I mean, it's Sony. They have the rights to Spider-Man. They should be able to use Spider-Man legally. So why couldn't they name it Peter Parker? I don't know.
It has to be a licensing issue. I mean, wait, hold on a second. Didn't the MCU or Disney get the rights from Sony, or did they request the rights to use Spider-Man in the Avengers series?
I think the request.
Honestly do not know. I think it started when the Marvel Comics went bankrupt sometime in the mid-late 90s. And then they sold some of their film rights to distribution studios like Universal, Fox, and Sony.
Right,
Before
Spider-Man.
Fox was bought out by Disney during the Fox-Disney merger in 2010s.
But then again, remember when Disney got Marvel and Fox and all that, Spider-Man was a Sony property, so they didn't immediately.
Exactly.
So
why
then they got
Madam Web use Peter Parker?
Exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly, because if the MCU was able to get to use Spider-Man, then why the hell would Sony not be able to use Peter Parker? It doesn't make any sense.
I guess they figure they couldn't make up their mind which Peter Parker to use.
You know what movie is actually doing better than Madam Web?
Let me guess.
I don't know. Lisa Frankenstein?
The Bob Marley movie?
Yes, the Bob Marley biopic, which was not expected to do as good, has been beating Madam Web in the box office.
But critics hate it for some reason.
Yeah, no, it did better box office in its opening weekend, a traditional weekend it is, than Madam Web did in a week. And the thing is, musician biopics, they usually do not make a lot of money at the box office. They're Oscar bait movies or whatever. Usually the good ones are. But yet here we are. A Bob Marley biopic is doing better than the latest superhero installment.
And one thing when you brought up critics and all that, there's one critic I can actually think about called Chris Stuckman, which he pointed out that saying that he's not going to attack the director or anything. He's just going to be positive about the movie. He's not going to be critical about it.
Well, talk about being an ass kisser.
Indeed.
And of course, you're going to have to get people, it's misogyny, just like they did with the Marvel, just like 2016 Ghostbusters, same old shit. Now, when you saw this movie, Pat, how was the theater half full, quarter full? Like, were there a lot of empty seats?
Honestly, now I'm trying to think. I think it was pretty full, and I saw it in Screen X.
Okay, so some enhancements there. Would you say there was plenty of women in the audience?
I honestly wish I knew, but I would say there were quite a few women there.
Okay, so it's estimated that the audience was 53% men, 47% women.
Yeah, let's go with that.
So once again, more men than women went to see it.
Oh, jeez.
And I bet you most of the women that went to see this were with their man on Valentine's Day for a date.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
If they were not Marvel superfans like Mr. Pat, they probably want to see it because, it's Sydney Sweeney in a skin-tight outfit.
Guilty.
People
but even at this point, watching porn would be more entertaining than Madam Web.
Be careful.
Well, again, like I mentioned in a previous podcast about Marvel, I don't think we're quite there yet. I would say give it till after Avengers Secret Wars comes out, then we'll see what happens.
I just think people are just getting really fed up about who's directing it, as well as who's writing it.
But you know what? As Mr. Pat already put it out, there's very little of Sydney Sweeney in the skin-tight outfit. In fact, there's very little of the Spider-Women in this movie, right?
Yeah.
So this movie was a bait and switch. So this was a chick flick disguised as a superhero movie?
I would say so.
Why would anyone want to see that? Was this even a movie that people wanted to see?
Oh, I think only for the feminists, to be exact.
Well, I wanted to really like this movie. Like, I just sort of went in with it with an open mind, but I finally watched it and I was like, yeah, no, this movie is worse.
But as Greg just pointed out, the feminists wanted to see it. No, obviously they didn't, because didn't seem like any feminists went to go see it.
Hypocritical.
Well, I can put it this way. These are the same feminists that say, we want to support women's sports, but they never show up for it.
Oh my God, you must have been reading my notes, Greg, because I actually said the same thing.
And it's probably the same people that supported Captain Marvel, right?
Gentlemen, what do you say to the people, or say about the people that say, oh no, this movie sucks because of woke shit?
I honestly don't even know what to comment.
There's really nothing to say, but The funny thing about the people that say, oh no, it's all bad because of woke shit. Well, Barbie was the top grossing movie last year. And that movie is quote unquote woke as shit.
Yeah. And I actually saw it like 20 something times.
Exactly. And you're not exactly the biggest Biden supporter on the planet either, and you still love the hell out of Barbie.
Yeah, because Barbie, at least to me, is not woke.
It didn't do well because of the hidden quote-unquote woke messages in it. It did well because it's Barbie being played by megastar Margot Robbie, and I would even say that Ryan Gosling's Ken was the best thing in that movie.
Yeah, he was definitely a perfect foil for Barbie.
Oh no, you guys don't like diversity, you're misogynist and racist. Newsflash. A movie about one of the most influential reggae musicians to ever exist is doing better than your female superhero movies. Bob Marley wasn't white, assholes.
Yep. Well, see, they didn't grow up with the classics like I did.
No, of course they didn't.
Because they just wanted, I don't know, be empowered by Cardi B and making the Stallions WAP and all that.
Well, now apparently because of the backlash of this movie, apparently Amazon fired all the writers for the upcoming production of Silk and wanting to change the appeal to be more male-oriented rather than chick flick-oriented.
Well, that's quite a bit of an overreaction, wouldn't you say? All because a movie bombed, you have to fire writers from an Amazon series?
Maybe they realized, wait a minute, we see the direction that Madam Web went and we don't want to go in the same direction. And they're pretty much realizing, yeah, we know who our audience predominantly is. We need to stop pandering to the audience that we don't have.
Well, to the writers that are saying that, I was just saying, geez, what took you so long?
That's what I'm thinking too, because the people behind Sony and Marvel obviously don't seem to be getting it. And as Greg already pointed out, you have a fringe minority of people saying, girl power, we need female superhero movies. They're the same idiots that say the WNBA needs equal pay, more revenue share, more support, yada yada, but they can't be bothered to attend a single WNBA game or even watch a game on TV. So what do you say, Pat and Greg, of people that say, oh, females don't like superhero movies?
Bullshit, they do.
Same.
Yeah, they just want good superhero movies, right?
Yeah.
With a decent plot?
Yes.
And I personally think Deadpool 3 is going to be like a silver lining to all of this.
Possibly. But when women see these superhero movies, what do they want to see? They want to see good-looking, hunky men on screen playing those roles, not Joe Beerbelly.
And good superhero women.
If women don't like superhero movies or comic books in general, then you wouldn't be having millions of women cosplayers at Comic Cons. You get the people that say, oh yeah, we need more female superhero movies. You know what? A female-led superhero movie should be the easiest thing to sell. Do you know why most of these female superhero movies have predominantly male audiences?
Why?
Because it's a hot woman in a tight, revealing outfit fighting bad guys.
And you got weirdos trying to take that away.
Exactly. Why would you even want to take that away? Men don't want to see Jane body positivity talking about her feelings about why the patriarchy sucks.
So I'm looking at Greg's post here about Rip X-Men 97. Did they redesign Rogue's ass or something?
Yes.
Well, I guess that's why I had to make the comparison to Lola Bunny's redesign in Space Jam 2.
Okay, true. But you know what? If there are women in the audience, if they're straight, then they like to see hunky guys doing the job. But you know what? If there's women in the audience that are seeing a female superhero movies, well, if they're gay or bi, well, then they want to see the same thing we straight men want to see, right?
Exactly.
Like, when it comes to a female superhero movie, how do you keep fucking this up?
Because they're trying to say, sexualizing women is wrong, and we're trying to show that.
But again, it's a hot-looking woman kicking ass. Like, there's not much else you need to sell. Now just make a compelling story and you're set, right?
Yep.
Right.
You must be that bad and unappealing if you turn away your predominant audience. And you have to be even worse if even women that went to see this movie said it's terrible. And then they wonder why even women aren't going.
You got weirdos would be saying something like, "Oh, those women are internal misogynists."
Oh, good God! Yeah, it's you just can't win with these people. So they really need to stop trying to pander and win with these people. They just can't.
Well, in other words, they're gonna keep on using tokenism until wherever it destroys. Whatever it is they destroy dies out.
You have a lot of these superhero movies still lined up that are still in phase 5. And it doesn't even seem to matter what character has between their legs. It just doesn't seem like anybody cares. Now, you're right. I think the Deadpool 3 with Wolverine will probably be the silver lining. But does anybody really want to see Captain America without Steve Rogers' Captain America?
No.
I'm just going to watch it because Thunderbolt Ross, who's now being played by Harrison Ford, turning into Red Hulk, and they're bringing back Tim Blake Nelson from The Incredible Hulk, who will finally turn into the leader.
We shall see. I mean, obviously,
I'm just very excited to see these Hulk villains,
and that's good to hear. Like, there's obviously a market. There's obviously people that still care, that really want to see this project going through, and there's always going to be a market for superhero movies, especially the most popular characters. But I think everybody is just tired of release after release of bad superhero movies.
Well, I hear that Disney and Marvel are looking to kind of cut back on some of the movie releases to, make quality over quantity.
They should have been doing that 5-10 years ago. Like, they just oversaturated it with Star Wars and Marvel, and not just movies, but TV shows as well.
And again, geez, what took them so long?
What if they kept making money on these projects, even if they were critically panned, they would have kept doing it. Because they would have been. I
personally would blame Bob Chapek and Kevin Feige being stretched out too thin. I know I think mentioned that in the Reign of the Marvel Cinematic Universe book, that, it mostly boils down to Bob Chapek and Kevin Feige being stretched too thin and so on.
No arguing with that. So, and you're basically saying, Pat, that they're at that moment where if they don't change their writing and direction soon, then it's just going to be a point of no return. Greg, what do you think?
Well, honestly, I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe just ended after Endgame.
Bingo.
I would like to agree to disagree.
Oh, I agree with Greg. It should have ended at Endgame. I think in hindsight, you could have taken out Captain Marvel because she didn't do anything in Endgame anyway.
Okay,
Captain Marvel was supposed to be the next overarching Tony Stark, right?
Yeah, and they were gonna have Tom Holland Spider-Man be like the new Iron Man and Black Panther, but then Chadwick Boseman passed away, so they had to change their plans, and Tom Holland Spider-Man was tied over with Sony rights, so that kind of made things difficult. And then when everybody started hating Captain Marvel, well, that became a problem too.
Yeah, and then when the Marvels came out, it was a movie that had a superhero that nobody liked, featuring two superheroes that nobody knew or cared about. Oh yeah, that's going to make a lot of money.
I actually liked Miss Marvel.
Oh no, you're absolutely you can like what you like. Like, I'm happy that you like this stuff, Pat.
I mean, she's kind of like me. I'm a huge fan of the Avengers.
I think a lot of people are fed up. They think a lot of people would say, nah, we should have just stopped it at Endgame.
Well, I think they should, but just take a year or so off from making Marvel movies, and then when that's done, they can just go back to making new Marvel movies.
What they should have done, they could fine, do the last Spider-Man movie because that ties up some loose ends, and you get Tobey and Andrew Garfield back. You do the last Guardians movie because that ties up loose ends. And then just take a year or so off,
take
Yes.
as much time off as they need, and then make more Marvel content.
That I can agree with, because there's the saying, how can I miss you if you won't go away?
Exactly.
There's a reason why Star Wars, when it was in its heyday, was released every 3 years. It gave people time to digest and then anticipate, instead of just being oversaturated with, oh, here's another Star Wars movie. Oh, here's another Star Wars movie. Oh, here's another Star Wars show.
Ugh.
And maybe not bring Bob Chapek in.
Yeah, they need a clean house.
I mean, if I could go back in time, I'd stop Disney from hiring Bob Chapek.
Or stop Disney from buying Marvel and Star Wars and all that.
Well, I don't know about that one.
It wasn't the fact that they bought Marvel and Star Wars that was the bad thing. It's the writers that they hired behind it.
Yes.
We're going to wrap this up, guys. Do you have anything to say in closing about Madam Web or the current state of the Sony and Marvel superhero movies?
Yeah. Madam Web sucks. But the only good thing was the beautiful women.
But you don't even get enough of that. You probably get more of that for free on a porn site.
Yep.
And fuck Marvel.
Well, maybe not go that far.
I'm going there.
Greg says fuck Marvel, and Pat says please don't.
No, just fuck Sony.
What?
Fuck Sony.
There you go. All right.
Don't screw over Spider-Man 4, Sony. Let Marvel handle it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That.
What'd you say, Greg?
What?
I highly doubt that.
Well, just gotta wait and see. I think Kevin Feige knows what he's doing.
Doubt it.
He's not gonna let Sony get away with it.
Doubt it.
All right.
Oh, this one was a fun one. If you liked this conversation between the three of us, you want to hear more podcast episodes, please like and subscribe. If you want to talk to myself directly, join our Discord server. Links in the description below. I'm Desert Coyote 22. Thank you for listening.
Ciao.
See ya.